This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to this research and practice event held on the 1st of June 2022. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining from the traditional lands of the Bunurong people. I extend respect to elders past, present and emerging as the custodians and knowledge holders of this place. I acknowledge the custodianship for land, seas, skies, waterways and all systems that embody country. As a researcher in the architecture industry, I note the direct role of the built environment in the lives of the Indigenous peoples as custodians, knowledge holders, end users, community members of the places I work on and that I travel through. I'm Jacqueline Baker, your host, and today's speaker is researcher Dr. Yalda Sourani, who's joining us from Melbourne. Just a bit about Yalda. Yalda was born and educated in Isfahan in Iran. Isfahan is the historical capital city and second largest city of Iran after the new capital city of Tehran. Her higher education consisted of a master's in architecture degree, completed in 2006. After graduating, she commenced working as a senior architect at a cultural heritage organisation. That's where she began working with nomads, a position that she held for around 6 years. Yalda then applied for PR or permanent residency in Australia while she was living in Iran and was lucky to come to Melbourne in 2013 as a permanent resident of the country and a PhD candidate at the University of Melbourne. Her doctoral study focused on the Bakhtyari Nomads and how their culture and climate affects the architecture of the Black Tent. Her fieldwork saw her follow the biannual migration of the nomads from their summer abode to their winter abode. Since completing her PhD, Yalda has been teaching in undergrad and postgrad architecture courses at 3 universities, Melbourne University, RMIT, and Swinburne University of Technology. This presentation focuses on Yalda's PhD study on how culture and climate affects the architecture of the Bakhtyari Nomad tents. After the presentation, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. And over to you, Yalda.
Oh, thank you very much, Jacqueline, for your information that you provide for people. I just share my screen. Okay. Just let me know.
Yeah, got it up.
Okay, perfect. Thanks everyone for attending this presentation. I'm going to talk about a specific nomads, Iranian nomads called Bakhtiaris, and actually their summer settlement called the Black Tent. This presentation, as Jacqueline explained, comes from a part of my PhD research that I finished in 2019 from the University of Melbourne. My research design, actually my research is divided into two sections. The first part is about the Bakhtiaris, their Black Tent, their territories, even their social and cultural structures and their climatic strategies. The second part is about the technical and more scientific aspects of their climate strategies, and also thermal behavior of the Black Tent and Black Tent's optimization. Today, I'm going to just focus on the first part and cover some topics from part 1 of my PhD research. I just talk quickly about my background, my professional background in this regard. I first came across actually the Bakhtiaris when I finished my Master of Architecture, and when I just began work at IRP Cultural Heritage Center, which was under supervision of Iranian Cultural Heritage Organization in Iran. The IOP Cultural Heritage Center was located in Ize in Khuzestan province, and Ize is actually famous for kind of ancient monuments and like rock carvings, and also because it's surrounded by Zagros Mountain, one of the most important mountain ranges in Iran. It is populated by the Bakhtiaris and nomads as well. And so Ize provides good opportunities and conditions for nomads to live actually in both summer and winter abodes. My responsibility actually was within design team as an architect. I did some actually studying about the Bakhtiari's current settlement, observing the effects of social developments on their lifestyle, visiting their summer and winter area, and commenting on the trend from a nomadic to sedentary lifestyle. The other part of my responsibility was as like a research manager in archaeology team, like the examination and documentation of archaeological sites and publishing technical report was actually other part of my responsibilities. So let's get back to the Bakhtiaris and see who are the Bakhtiaris. Iran consists of urban, rural, and nomadic societies. Iranian nomads are spread throughout Iran and are classified according to a diversity of cultures. However, the Bakhtiaris is the largest nomadic tribe, which lives in the middle of Zagros, with a history of around 8,000 years. Regarding the political history, the political and economic power of pastoral nomads in Iran, including the Bakhtiaris, was the foundation stone of several dynasties, the Safavid, the Afshar, and the early Qajar. Armed tribesmen shaped the main body of the state military forces. They had significant military power and political authority to provide security and actually guard the borders of the country. Also, Soraya Esfandiari Bakhtiari was the queen consort of Iran as the second wife of Shah Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, whom she married in 1951. However, the political change in the early 20th centuries, the replacement of the Qajar dynasty by Reza Khan and the establishment of the Pahlavi regime had a radical influence on pastoral nomadism in Iran. In this context, Reza Khan regarded the military and political power of pastoral nomads as a major threat to the unity of the country. Beside the traditional lifestyle, their custom and culture were also considered to be backward and a barrier for the modernization of the country that needed to be replaced by modern Western values, unfortunately. Furthermore, this discovery of oil as a new source of national income reduced the government's reliance on taxes paid by the nomads. In line with Reza Khan moderation's policy, he was convinced that nomadism was not only an outdated way of life, but also an obstacle to the social and economic development of Persia. So he decided to completely eliminate nomadism in the country. I thought this is good to give you some background about what happened to nomadic lifestyle in Iran. That's why I actually tried to read this paragraph. Sorry if it was a bit long. Let's get back to the territory of the Bakhtyari. The Bakhtiaris actually live in a region which is known as the territory of the Bakhtiaris, which is Char Mahal Bakhtyari. The nomads, the Bakhtyari's nomads used to actually travel or say migrate from lowland in their territory to highlands based on their seasonal calendar. So they have two different territories. The warm territories, which we call it Qeshlaq, or like it's better to say they call it Qeshlaq. It is located in southern lowlands. It has a moderate winter and very hot summer. That's why the nomads pass winter over there. The second territory is cold territory or Yalda, located in the northern highlands. It has mild summer and cold winter, and nomads pass summer in this area. So if you have a quick look at this, seasonal calendar, is really simple but very informative. You can see here from October to March, which is winter time in Iran, which is in northern hemisphere. So they spend like around 6 months in actually Qeshlaq in lowland, which has like nice winter, is not that cold, and they start to actually migrate during April to the highland, and they will spend 4 months during summertime over there, and then again they will start to migrate in September to get back to the Qeshlaq or lowland. Based on two different territories that they have two different settlements as well. So they live in semi-permanent stone huts in the winter area from October to March in Qeshlaq, and also they have portable black tents in summer area from April to September in the Yalda. There is a very, very valuable documentary that I highly recommend you guys to watch. This documentary is called Brass, A Nation's Battle for Life, which is made in 1924. So that's why it's really valuable. So they documented different nomads from different countries. A part of this documentary is about the Bakhtiaris. So I could find this documentary for my PhD. So I use this one in some of chapter of my PhD as well. Anyway, this documentary is about the Bakhtiaris who take some migration roads. If you can see them, the road is with like red line. So they used to take this road and pass through 3 different obstacles. First is very actually important river through here, and then the border, and then the mountain, and then get to their summer pasture. So this is about the migration from winter pasture to summer pasture. By taking this road. I just need to tell you, they like nomads had different roads. This road is one of their famous road. They took this road, and they used to take this road to get to summer pasture. And the documentary is about this road. So I just show you like maybe around 3 minutes of that documentary to give you some idea about their migration, how they used to migrate that time. And I stop talking. I just pass through here because I know we don't have that time. Or from here. Okay, I thought we should watch a little bit about how the Bakhtiaris actually used to migrate that time. But nowadays, you can just, again, this documentary is made like in 1924, like 98 years, almost 100 years ago. So that's why I highly recommend you guys to watch this documentary, which is really valuable. But how about these days? They migrate in different way because everything has changed. They used to, like that movie, that documentary that you saw right now, it took like around 28 days because they traveled on feet. But these days they use trucks to carry their animals, and they used to take like roads, as you can see in this picture. The Black Tent, which is their summer settlement, I focus on Black Tent because the Black Tent symbolize the unique nomadic identity of the Bakhtiaris in their summer area, or the Yalda. Due to the penetration of modernization, many nomads have tended to become sedentary over time. Therefore, it's very important to document the current lifestyle and the Black Tent's architecture before it changes any further or even disappears. Because of their nomadic lifestyle, adapting with nature is the prominent character of the Black Tent. However, the Bakhtiari's climatic responsive strategies have not been studied and analyzed in detail. Campsite and encampment selection. The Black Tent and its environmental behavior are examined in the context of the campsite. So the organization of the campsite and the layout of encampment have great impact on the tent and its environmental behaviors. That's why I spent lots of time when I was doing my PhD to find a suitable, actually, area that cover most of the nomads who lives in the traditional lifestyle. So as I mentioned already, they used to live in most of them in Bakhtyari territory of the Bakhtiaris. So in here, Bakhtyari is the main territory of the Bakhtiaris, which is divided into 7 regions, including a large number of nomads. I focus on Ardal. So Ardal is my actually city of kind of case study. Sufficient number of nomads living in an old lifestyle for study, and it is also more accessible in Ardal. And the campsite that I selected was Loshtar. You can see a view of that campsite, and if you can see, I think it's not that clear, but you can see the black points here in this picture. There are Black tents. So this is the campsite group of Black tents that they live together. And the last one is the encampment, one of the nomads encampment that I selected this one because it had all the spaces commonly used by nomads. Give you some better view of campsite and also encampment. This is the Razi's encampment. Razi's is one of the nomads who lived there and who let me to live with them for a while during my fieldwork. Razi's encampment consists of one Black tent. If you can see, it's not only Black tent. So Black tent comes with other different spaces as well in each encampment. So the brown color indicates human spaces, and the gray color indicates livestock spaces. So you can see a list of spaces that we can find in most of the encampments. What is very interesting is the location of the spaces that you can see in this map is not by accident at all. The spaces which are used frequently during the day are placed in easy access to the tent, and also is based on the, like I did some shadow study, and based on the orientation of the tent, that which in mountain area is more faced to southeast to receive more sunlight during the day. Anyway, it is about other chapters of my PhD, shadow study and these things, but I want to show you that the placement of the spaces in each campaign is not by accident, and it's completely based on the shadow that they receive during the day. Regarding the architectural elements of the black tent, I have a very simple but I think informative sketch here that you can see different elements, architectural elements of the black tent. It consists of cover. This part, we have two poles, one in front, one in the middle. We have beams here, and we have ropes and gouche. I will talk about each one just very quickly. The tent cover or lat, what is really important for nomads is the animals, especially goats. Even in that documentary, you saw that how they use the skin of the goat to use to pass through the river. So they use from each part of goats in this culture. The lifestyle of Bakhtyari consists mainly of goats and sheep. Goat's hair has the necessary length and strength to make a very suitable, highly tensile fabric for the black tent cover. The black color of the tent comes from the natural color of the goat hair, which improves its thermal behavior as well, which I covered in other chapters from of my PhD research. The tent cloth consists of series of strips. So each of these strips that we call it lat, they stitch together. One lat normally has the dimension of 9 meter by 30 centimeter. So like just imagine 9 meter here and 30 centimeter each here. And one tent usually consists of 20 lats. So an average sized actually tent is typically about 9 meter by 6 meter. It also can be repaired. If part of the tent is like torn, the Bakhtyari is patched. The lifetime of each lat is between 12 to 15 years. Based on its age, the worn out panel is removed and replaced with a new one, so they don't have to change the whole tent cover together, which is another advantage of this actually shelter. The other part is middle pole or steen. The tent covering is held up by 2 rows of wooden poles, which are usually made of oak. The poles in first row are called steen. Each pole is about 2.5 meters in height, and average size tent usually has 5 poles placed 1.5 meters apart from each other. They bear most of the compressive force from the weight of the tent cover. They are like props, and they don't penetrate to the earth. They just being held in place by the compression from the tent cover. The other element is front pole piche, which are placed in a straight line parallel to the middle poles or steen, and they support the front side of the tent's cover. These poles are about 2 meters high, so you can see like the middle one is like 2.5, and the front one is 2, so that's why we have like a slope for like rainy days to get rid of rain on rainy days. And the shape, the piche or the front poles are Y shape on top. One branch in this picture you can see better here. So one branch of the Y structure the edge of the tent by means of hooks, while the other one supports the ropes which are fixed to the earth. Other elements is wooden beam or tile. The wooden beam or tile are used for distributing the weight of the tent cover on the middle poles. The tiles are supported by the steen along the length of the tent in the middle. Depends on the shape of the poles. You can see we have two different shapes for the poles. So the shape of the tiles would be different as well. The other material is the rope or band. The ropes or bands bear the major tensile forces and help to keep the tent static. As a result, they have to be strong and resistant. They are made by twisting sheep's wool or goat's hair into ropes of various lengths. And the last element is hook or gushe. Hooks made actually from goat's hair again, and they are attached to the front and also back side of the tent cover from each, like 1.5 meters from each other. For each pishe there is, or pishe like front poles, there is a corresponding gushe. One branch of the topped pishe is held by the gushe rather than the tent cloth itself. The back gushe are used for attaching the bands connecting to the end of the tent. The elements that I mentioned are architectural elements that generally they made one black tent together. They are more portable and movable. However, they have some fixed elements in each tent as well, like they have one short stone wall or fireplace that normally they leave it when they want to migrate to other places, and then again they would get back on the same location. But the other elements that I mentioned now, they are all portable and movable. One of the most important things about the black tent is weaving the lat over each strip that I talked before. So it's really interesting. That's why I wanted to show this slide to you guys, because just look at the numbers here. They are really interesting. It takes the hair from 5 goats to produce just 1 lat. So to make just 1 lat, they need 5 goats. And it takes them like 3 days. I was so lucky last time that I traveled for my field work to this campsite. I found a family who were weaving their black tent, which is really rare, and I was so lucky because I recorded lots of video and took lots of photos. You cannot find any more of this kind of actually tools and the techniques and skills anymore. But anyway, it takes them 3 days to just make 1 lat. And as I mentioned, we need like 20 lats for just 1 black tent. So just calculate, they need 100 goats to make just 1 black tent. And it takes them 60 days, like around 2 months. So to make 1 black tent, they need 100 goats, and it takes them 2 months to make it. That's why these days, they don't do this. They replace the material with canvas. So they use canvas tent instead of goat's hair or black tent. This is some other topics that I can talk till morning, but this I just try to stop talking about the different material that they are going to use or they are using these days. At the end, what is really interesting about the black tent, the portable elements are attached together by simple connectors, which can be separated easily. The tent can be packed and pitched in another place easily and in a short time when necessary. The pieces are light and their actually dimensions allow for the easy packing and transportation by livestock. Mule and donkeys carry the nomad shelter, including the folded tent panels, the tent poles and beams, and other attachments on their migration. I stopped talking about actually nomads and Bakhtiaris and the architecture, because I think already I talked around 30 minutes. So I want to give you guys more time. If you have any question, ask me. At the end, I just let me thanks to Bakhtiari's people who gave me opportunities for 6 years that I was working in that center, IOP Center, and also they share the valuable information to me. I should thank to IOP Cultural Heritage Center organization under supervision of Dr. Mehkian, and also I should thank to my PhD supervisor, my dear supervisor, Dr. Daham Grafs. I think he's here as well in this presentation. I think he attended. So big thank to him because he was so patient with me over the years that I was doing my PhD, and very supportive, and he helped me to finish my PhD. I actually stopped sharing, but I let you guys, if you have any questions, so we can talk. And
thank you so much, Yalda.
no worries. Do you think should I stop or should I take?
I've got a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I think you might have mentioned right at the start that that they completely eradicated nomadism.
Yeah.
So, but there also was a large enough sample of these nomads for you to study. So I was wondering if you have any idea at all how many Bakhtiaris are still living in this traditional way?
A very, very good question, but the answer is a little bit hard because I don't know exactly how many, but what I'm sure is these days we can divide the nomads into 4 groups. First group, they completely live in permanent dwellings. They don't migrate at all anymore. The second group, they live in semi-permanent dwellings, like in their stone hut that I showed in the like winter area. So it's semi-permanent. And some of them still they live in their tent, but they can take advantage of electricity, gas, and other services because they are very close to cities. And the last group, which are very rare, they still live in very, very traditional lifestyle. They live exactly those things that they were my case studies. So they don't have any electricity, any gas, and they live in remote area, and it's really hard to access to them. So I can say they are in 4 groups, but how many is really hard to understand or to figure out how many. But I can say like maybe 10%. They just live in their very traditional lifestyle. Yeah, unfortunately.
And with the Bakhtiaris that have moved into the cities to live the same lifestyle as everyone else in Iran, do you know much about the challenges that they've had assimilating into just the general Iranian culture?
For sure, it's really hard to change your lifestyle, you know, but it's now I can say like around like at least 30 years, they get used to this kind of lifestyle. But the good point about the Bakhtiaris is they still live in their territories. You know what I mean? So they still live in their land, but just their lifestyle is different. So it's completely like people who like either that I used to work, I could see lots of Bakhtiaris who settled there. So they exactly like people who live in cities. They don't have their traditional dress. They don't have any, you know, they dress like us, and they actually gave up all the tradition and custom they had. But the good point, they still live in their land. So they are all Bakhtiaris together. They know each other, you know, for many years. So they don't have that much. But of course, it is like disadvantage of just leaving the, you know, those traditional migration and everything that they had before.
Thanks, Yalda. Are there any other questions?
Thanks, Yalda. It was a great presentation.
No worries, my pleasure.
So I was quite interested to hear that it takes 5 goats to make 1 lat. And am I correct in remembering that 1 lat is 9 meters by 300 mil? Is that right?
That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah. Then when you
5
imagine,
goats.
oh my God, like 100 goats, they need to make just 1 black tin. So that's why they honestly they gave up all these traditions, especially these days. So it's amazing to know about these numbers. It's very interesting. Yeah.
And I also wondered, did they only ever use 1 black tent per group, or were there several of these black tents in the settlement?
Okay, very good question. Look, depends on the number of family. Like they used to live together like daughter and son. When even they get married, they used to live like in one encampment. So depends on the number of family. Like that black tent that I considered in my thesis, it was like it houses 6 members. So it depends on the number. So normally that's like 9 by 6. If you consider the size, like it covers like 6 people. So it depends on the number of family. Like more, they need to have more.
Yeah. Any other questions?
That was a really great presentation. Thanks, Yalda. It's fascinating, and thank you for bringing us a part of the world that we probably won't get to. That's really, really interesting. I'm just wondering, as far as obviously they live quite a sustainable lifestyle, and maybe what insights you have taken from that could be applied outside of that sort of life.
If you tell me a little bit more about your question.
Sure. It seems to me that the impact on the environment is fairly gentle and sustainable. Unlike our modern lifestyle, we tend to take more than we give. I'm just wondering what you might have learnt from that experience that, or just in general, that maybe we can't apply it, but how have you found that's impacted your view of lifestyle and housing?
In terms of environment, it was a really good question. As I mentioned at the beginning of my lecture, like I just talked about the first part of my thesis, which was about like more about the Bakhtiaris and the black tent. But the second part was about how they actually cope with the environment and how we can learn from the environmental strategies. They have very, I didn't have time to show more actually slides about the strategies, climatic strategies, and how they actually use very simple but thoughtful. This is a part of my actually the outcome of the research as well. So because they use very simple methods in their lifestyle and also in their climatic strategies, just using the tent and the material that you use, that we can exactly use in our current architecture as well. So like the way that they cope with sun and wind and the environmental factor is really, really simple but very, very thoughtful. And I just suggested something. Even we can use the same material that they use for the tent cover like goat's hair, and I did some actually analysis in terms of physical properties of that material and how we can use these days this material in our architecture. So there are a lot to learn, and I personally learn a lot in terms of even their lifestyle, the way that they used to live. And I suggested that like in future we can use some of these strategies.
Thanks, Yalda. Are there any more questions? I might just read out a couple of comments. So Irsan says, thank you for the very interesting presentation, and she had to go. And Andrew Lyon says, thanks, Yalda, very interesting. And Carly Manani says, fantastic presentation, Yalda, and beautiful drawings. Thank you for sharing. And Marinosh says, thanks for sharing your research and very interesting content. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we might wrap it up. So thank you very much, Yalda, for presenting today. This was really interesting, particularly about how much use they make of the goats. So they use I understand the tents are made of the goat's hair, and they certainly use the goat's skin for crossing rivers. So yeah, it's really a really interesting culture. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me and giving me this opportunity to share a part of my research to people. Thank you very much, Jacqueline.
Okay.
And thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.